What's up, Vegas? We're back, episode 49 of the Guestless podcast. It's crazy how far we've come already in 5 short months. So I thank all of you that have been along this journey. If you're on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you're listening, make sure you go over to YouTube and hit subscribe because we're starting to get a lot of traction over on YouTube, guys. So I think that might be the place to be in the future. And now on to this episode. I have an entrepreneur, and I love talking to entrepreneurs. Yeah, as I've said many, many times, there's just something about entrepreneurs where we have such similar mindsets, but the journeys along the way are just so mysterious and so crazy that it just makes every conversation so unique. So the entrepreneur that I have on, she's been working in emergency medicine for 13 years. She's a weight loss coach, and her passion and purpose is in wellness. And in 2016, she was rated in the MyVegas top 100 women of Las Vegas. So without further ado, Miss Liza Henley.
Hello. Congrats on these many episodes. That's so solid. In a time like this, being consistent with it and committed to it, that is so awesome. Congratulations on that. And thank you so much for having me on.
I'm excited for this. And if Juliana's listening, thank you for the referral, Juliana. I know she's
very good friend of mine.
Yeah, one of your very good friends. And it's funny, when I was researching Juliana, I actually found something that you and her had done way back in the day. In the day.
JNLPV?
Yeah, JNLPV, personal development. That's before personal development kind of hit the mainstream. You guys were right there in the beginning.
We were all about it, and we were young too. So people were looking at us like, "What? What are you talking about?"
Like, what do you mean PV? Yeah, this is I think it was in the early 2010s on YouTube, and now still in its infancy as well.
Yeah.
That's the entrepreneur spirit. You see it and you run with it. Sometimes as being an entrepreneur, sometimes you're in too early and don't understand the power. And sometimes you just catch the right wave and you know that you just take it with you along the way.
You know, I was kind of an interesting mix between the two. I got into network marketing really, really early on and saw some pretty early success with that and was a 6-figure earner throughout my journey with network marketing. And so I then quickly discovered that I was in my early 20s and I didn't really know all that much. And so I was talking a lot about theories and ideas that I didn't really know much about. And so Juliana talked, we talked a lot about the idea of going through kind of this journey of self-discovery and self-growth and personal development, and how do you do that in this day and age, but also stay kind of young and captivating and hip with it. And so we dove into that world, and we had been in that world since our early 20s, going to different seminars and hearing different speakers like Les Brown and Brene Brown and Mel Robbins and Anthony Robbins, and seeing all these incredible people speak and reading all their books and then listening to all of their work, kind of redefining what it meant for us in a much younger generation, right? A lot of these speakers that we were listening to were old enough to be our grandparents or our parents, or at the very least our much older siblings. And so kind of redefining it into what our own words was our main goal. And we really were able to go to a lot of foster care groups and talk to these kids and explain the idea of personal development and kind of make it sexy, right? As a kid, the idea of work on yourself and self-help, self-help has this interesting stigma that we were really committed to kind of breaking away from. And the idea of seeking out help to grow and to better yourself is not only okay, but it's almost necessary, right? And so yeah, personal development has been a really, really huge presence in my life since I was about 21, 22 years old.
I like that you guys kind of became a lifeline out of it, because when I graduated college, I started reading self-help books, which is kind of ironic because you figure when you graduate college, you're all right, I know exactly what I want to do. I don't need help. But
right. Theoretically, huh?
Theoretically. But I got caught in this whirlwind of I kept reading self-help books, but it wasn't really taking me anywhere. I understood the concept, but there was no real direction. And so you guys were able to notice that and to kind of lend a helping hand and be like, look, these are self-help, but it's also about building outwards too, as well, with personal development, keyword on the development. Because
the action, right? We can get, so there was something also called self-development junkies, personal development junkies, right? You go to all these seminars, you listen to all these books, you read all these things, and then you lack the action taking part. And for a while there, I think that I was in that space because it was residual income that I was bringing in. So then I was kind of like sitting in this space of kind of like idleness. And then it was like, wait a minute, we gotta run, we gotta go. And then, it's always been this steady idea of personal development, but then mixing that with action is not only key, but it's what then like gets you going, right?
Yeah. So I'm curious, as far as you said that you did network marketing, I've had actually quite a few network marketers come onto this show now, and they all eventually bridge it out into something else. What network marketing company did you work for, and what kind of effect did that have on you moving forward?
And it's interesting because I think network marketing has a really negative connotation to it. I think that it has a really like negative stigma to it. But ironically enough, right, ironically enough, it's really big into personal development. And so they really promote the idea of personal development. And so I credit all of my personal development and where I am today because of network marketing. The company that I started with, I'm still actually with them today. I was a huge product partner. It's a cellular development, a cellular nutrition company, USANA Health Sciences, that was founded by a scientist rather than a businessman. And so that was my whole like realm getting into it. I was diagnosed with something called a Chiari malformation. So long story short, that was my avenue into it. And so being so young, I had never heard of residual income before. And it was a new concept to me. And so it was something that I dove right into, and I was like, oh my God, everyone wants to be millionaires. Everyone wants to be rich, and then I grew up and was like, okay, well, not everybody does want that. Not everybody wants that hustle. Not everybody wants that grind. Not everybody wants that lifestyle. And I realized that nor did I, right? But how I kind of branched out is that with a health and wellness company, I loved the idea of helping all of these people, but I wasn't able to help them on a long-term basis to like really make life changes. And working in the emergency room since a really young age, I see what an unhealthy lifestyle does. Like I see what happens when your body's like, okay, well, hi, you treated me like shit for long enough now. Now you have to be on medication. Now your quality of mobility is very much so limited. Your quality of life is quickly dwindling. Your idea of what you were going to be able to do when you're older is now going to have to change because your body can't keep up because of how you treated yourself, right? So I saw firsthand all of these people that were living too short and dying too long, if that makes sense, right? So the life expectancy sure is longer, but people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s are getting slapped with these lifetime diagnoses that inhibits the way that they're able to live. And so I was seeing that and really wanted to help people prevent that, right? So being in the preventative aspect of it, I wanted to dive in deeper. And so I created a 12-week program that I can really focus one-on-one with people and help them actually change their life, which is also really hard because diet culture is a mind fuck. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
No, yeah, but please, it's freedom of expression.
Perfect. Diet culture is a mind fuck, and anyone that's my age, I'm 31. I grew up. So now at this point, anyone that's my age or younger, you've fully grown up with it and it's been in your face since you were a young child. And so to combat that and teach people that that's not health, that's aesthetics, to combat it all, it's different. And so my journey with network marketing led me into the world of entrepreneurship. My dad owned his own business, but my mom was a nurse. So I had two ends of the spectrum at home. And then we were pushed to go to college. And so I went to college and I like flailed around. I had 6 different majors. I had no idea what I wanted to do because as an entrepreneur, the idea of doing the same thing forever is like debilitating, right? So it truly, like, I owe everywhere I am like right now to network marketing, and it's been a wonderful journey for me. But I also, it's not for everybody. And I did branch off into multiple streams of income, but that's also what it taught me, is to have multiple streams of income, right? And so through all of that, I'm still with that company. It's a product partner of mine. But I developed my program, Mindful Body Blueprint, which I take people from where they are right now health-wise to where they want to be, and help them discover where is it that they actually want to be. Because society makes us believe we want a certain thing, but then when we get down to it, do we even want that? A lot of times the answer is no, but no one's really taught us how to like figure out, to discover and unweb it all, if you will, about what we actually want. We're programmed and conditioned to think that we want the same cookie cutter shit, and What if you don't want that?
Can't.
But you're working so much, you're working so hard towards that, and then you get it and you're still upset or unhappy or not excited or not joyful or not, you don't have any of these emotions that you want to feel. You're still feeling these same basic emotions over and over and over again. And we wonder why. I help people break out of that and help people really in kind of encompass their life in a healthy way. And that's not taught mainstream, because how do you sell that? It's not a pill. It's not a gel. It's not a wrap. It's not a fucking oil. It's not a sellable packaged product that you can say, okay, let's sell to the masses and then have them rebuy it over and over and over again. I'm going to teach you how to never need me again.
Yeah, that's something that capitalism kind of tries to stay away from, because like you said, you're only a repeat customer when you have a coach. Is only a repeat customer for maybe 6 months, maybe a year, or maybe it can bridge into something else. But if you're an everyday supplement buyer, that's lifelong, until you realize that a lot of these supplements are unregulated, and it's actually probably more detrimental to your health.
That's what's scary, is that it's also an unregulated industry. So you got to find a way to marry the two. I learned that I needed to find a way to marry the two, right? Because if you're trading your dollars for hours, it's difficult to maintain that entrepreneur lifestyle as well as that time freedom, right? I have a beachfront condo in Mexico that I like to go to every other month, but I can't do that if I'm constantly, like, my hands are tied having to give my time. So how do you do both, right? And I wanted to be able to do both. I had the residual income of a company that I totally trust and respect, but also how do my purpose wasn't all the way filled, right? Like my passion also all the way wasn't filled. I wanted to be able to exchange my time with people and take them on a journey, not just introducing a couple of products into their lifestyle, which is also needed, right? People need to learn what products, and I'm talking about not just like products that are like viable. This is a company it's Corksicle. This is a company that I tell everybody about. It's the best water bottle I've ever heard. But being able to share product recommendations, sure, that'll only get you so far, but also being able to marry it with something and having multiple streams of income. And that in and of itself, that nugget, that idea of having multiple streams of income is something that network marketing did teach me. So there's two sides to that coin, right? It can be really, really, really slimy. No questions asked. But that's why you got to really, really do research, and don't jump into it just because your friend's uncle's cousin's sister said it's a good idea, because it might not be.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times one of the guests I had on here, his name's Stephen Cohen. He co-founded his own solar company. But when we were in college, he started doing Verve network marketing, and I was one of his biggest critics about, oh, you're joining a pyramid scheme. You're just
yeah.
you're just getting scammed. And now he used that kind of like you did. He leveraged that networking abilities, and I don't think he was a six-figure income earner from it, but he used those sociable skills and leveraged it now into a product where he can create his own solar company on top of that. And I've seen that happen time and time and time again. I think you're actually the first one I've talked to that was actually like a high income earner from it. But it seems that from MLM, there's a lot more than just dollars that stems from it.
Mm-hmm. Well, so here's the problem with it, right? It's easy to get in because it's generally a cheap investment in terms of a couple hundred to a couple thousand, depending on whatever the company is. So it's a cheap investment. So anyone can kind of get into it. So therefore it's easy to get out of. It's easy to say like, like whatever. So you can treat it like a business, or you can treat it like a hobby, or you can treat it like it's a holy shit, I'm going to get rich quick, which is never the case unless it is a scheme, right? Which they're out there. Like that is true. Like, and they're illegal, but they're out there, right? So if you treat it like a business and you actually get training on it, because there is training to be had. You need to be trained on the product or service or whatever it is. And then you also need to be trained on how the hell to do it. And a lot of people aren't willing to put in the time and the effort to do that. But beyond that, the principles of it, the principles that you can take away from it, it taught me how to diversify, how to have a different, an interesting portfolio, how to invest in certain things, how to look at business, how to look at finance, how to look at, okay, how do I match being able to be passionate about something and absolutely love what I do, but then also like live a comfortable lifestyle, because I like freedom. I like time freedom. I like travel. I like nice things. I do like that. And so we can't say just like, do whatever you love if you don't make money with it. Like that to me also isn't realistic. And so I had to find a happy medium, and it took a decent amount of time. Again, I started all of that whole world when I was 21, and I'm 31 now. And I feel like it's been the last probably 2 years that I've got my footing, that it's like, okay, like I have this area down, I have this area down, I have this area down. Now I just bought and then demolished and redid my whole house. And so I have all these like areas of my life that are finally coming into play, but it's not by chance, right? It's by design, it's by intention. Like we were talking about before we got started. It's easy to go in one direction or another based off of a couple of different decisions. And it's easy to allow yourself to be consumed with the negativity of whatever's going on if you let it. But if you are intentional about it and mindful about it, you can also allow that to be a catalyst for, like re-identifying yourself or deciding what new path or new avenue or new journey you want to go on and change direction. I think a lot of people are really fearful to do so, but we can use that fear to drive us if we kind of learn how to learn how to utilize our own emotions, if you will.
I think pivoting is probably one of the most important determinations in an entrepreneur's life on making a decision and finding success. And then on the opposite end, I think in just everyday life, that's one of the main fears that holds people back, of saying, like, for example, like in an office job where you worked your way up to become a manager after 5 years, but you've kind of hit that fiscal income peak of, in the mid 5 figures. And you're like, man, I put so much time into this job, so much networking to get here, but then they just let a lot of opportunities pass by because of that fear of starting over. But if you take the personal development side from it and you're like, all right, what did I learn in this 5 years that I was here? What skills can I take from this? And then turn that into your pivot, you'll usually probably at least double your income or find some sort of variation in success afterwards. So I think being able to note that pivoting is crucial to someone's success, because if you look out at a lot of successful people, I don't think there's many that stuck with one thing their entire life, even most founders too.
Well, see, I don't believe in like being stagnant. I don't believe that's a thing. I think that you're either growing or you're dying. And that sounds really dramatic, but it is dramatic, right? Like, I don't think that there is such thing as that. And I think that if you're not intentional about growing, then you're probably not going to grow. You're probably not going to grow, right? And I'm a really big note taker. I have a huge a library of partial like journals itself that I've taken for the last probably 12 years of any seminar that I go to, or anytime I listen to a podcast. I love podcasts too. Anytime I listen to them, I take notes. If you can tell, I've been taking them now, and I put them into notebooks, and I read them, and then I go back and I highlight them, and I'm like, oh my God, I learned that when I was 21. Like, now what does that mean when I'm 26? Now what does that mean when I'm 29? Now what does that mean when I'm 31? And what is that going to mean when I'm 35 and 40? And taking the things that we learn and relearning them and then redefining them, and exactly what you're saying, kind of like pivoting. But pivoting can be scary. But for me, I had to decide what's scarier. And I decided in college, before this whole entrepreneur thing, like even really took roll, was that the idea of doing the same thing for me, that's what's scary. The idea of staying in that one place, that scares the shit out of me. So for me, the new and the change and the uncertainty and the variety is what gives me life, right? But if you look at the basic human needs, people need different needs. Some people need that variety, but some people need that certainty. And it's interesting when we discover what it is that we need. But unfortunately, because of programming and because of conditioning and because we're kind of like step by step by step, go to school, then go to college, and then get good grades, and then get a job, and then go through this whole thing, like we almost don't even get time to like think, wait, what about me? Like, what do I want? Because we're almost kind of like taught, want what you're told, or like want what you see. And what's interestingly enough, like a couple of years ago, what really made me like fully grasp that was when I was telling my boyfriend, like what kind of like how I was like, oh my God, my sister's house is so freaking gorgeous. It's this, that, and the other. And then we went there, and he's like, why do you always tend to want to hang out at your parents' house? And my parents' house was more like cozy and small and like not necessarily like this big open thing. And he's like, so you say that you want your sister's house, but then you go to your parents' house. So like, why do you think that you want your sister's house? And it's because it's that like Instagram, social media, like mentality of like, we're programmed and conditioned and groomed to want certain things. And unless you take a step back and challenge that, and challenge your own beliefs and challenge your own ideas that may or may not be yours, you may be kind of like living this lifestyle that like isn't actually very fulfilling for you.
Yeah, that's challenging your own beliefs is something that I was personally going through, and I won't go too much into this because I know it kind of pisses people off. But as far as like politics go, just growing up, I grew up on the east side of Vegas. You know, it's very like a low income area. So just by, I can say by heredity, like a bunch of my family is always Democrats. And, you know, this isn't to say that I've become a conservative by any means, because I haven't, but just like I started trying to figure out, especially during this pandemic, like what do I actually believe in? Like what's right and what's wrong? What do these policies mean? And then learning that on top of like financial systems and politics in other countries as well, you learn to, or you begin to learn just like how much mind control is actually going on through the media. And that's something that really pushed me into podcasting and becoming a
go
consumer.
further than just media. Go further than that. Like go like from your teachers, your parents, your surroundings, right? Like if you think about like what it is that you believe or hear little kids, right? So just for example, I was in Mexico. I have a condo in Mexico, and I was talking to a family that's from Mexico, but the kid, 7 years old, he speaks English. We were talking back and forth. He said, "Where are you from?" We said, "Las Vegas." He said, "Oh, that's in the United States." And we said, "Yeah." He goes, "There's a lot of coronavirus." So my best friend who's with me is a nurse practitioner. She said, "That's okay. I actually take care of those people." And he goes,
"Oh,"
swam away, and we never saw that family again. And so it's just like conditioning of any kind of where you are, challenging the beliefs that you hold, because they may not necessarily be yours. They may be just beliefs that you just had over and over again. But then also like your beliefs can change. And that's something that's so like oddly taboo in the world that we live in. The idea of someone changing their mind, that goes directly along with growth. The more growth that you do, the more perspective that you have, a paradigm shifts that you have, then your ideas can absolutely change. Your thoughts can absolutely change. My belief is the problem is when you don't challenge that and you just stick with the same beliefs, even when circumstances change. When circumstances change and your beliefs always stay the same and your ideas always stay the same, that to me is a bit of a red flag. Everything else is changing and you don't even want to think for a second about like redefining what it even means.
Yeah. You think
people are stuck.
Yeah. You think of how rapid technology advanced, like literally, you know, VR was pretty non-existent 5 years ago. Now it's pretty popular. Same with AR and financial systems. Now just imagine the human mind and how much information we process every day. I think it was something around like 150 bits of information every few seconds. So just like being able to take in all of this at such an exponential change compared to technology, I think not challenging things is detrimental to your future. And also, yeah. I do want to say that like it's okay to challenge things, because this kind of position that I'm in is I've become more accepting of challenging things, but it's also okay to not take a position on it too if you're unsure. So I like to call myself kind of like an observer of the political space. Like I don't really know where I fall in lines of, but there's a lot of things that I've begun to question as well. And this has also become the same with college and higher education and kind of just where leaders are pushing things. It's like I don't know exactly what the right decision is. I think especially a lot of, like you see today in the coronavirus world, a lot of these leaders are put in such challenged times and such impossible situations that people like become very hateful towards those decisions. And, you know, it's okay to challenge it, but to just automatically put yourself in the opposite end just because you don't agree with that, I don't think is the right fitting either.
But it's also interesting, like, not to like, I mean, like, I feel like we can like pivot after this if you want. It's also interesting, like some of these people that are criticizing any decision that is made are the same people that have a hard time deciding where they want to go for dinner. And so we forget, like, decision-making can be difficult sometimes. And so it's easy to throw stones in any area. And so it's just interesting. So I like that you said that you're also allowed to not take a position on something if A, you're not interested, B, you don't know, C, you're unsure. Like, it's you don't have to. You can sit on the sidelines if you want.
Yep. I like to say it's an observer. And as we were talking about like pivoting, something I'd mentioned in the beginning was that you've been in the emergency medicine space for 13 years. So that was something that actually stuck with you throughout the majority of your life.
Yeah.
What do you find so captivating in the space to stay put there as you continually change what you're involved in?
So in the emergency room, like you see so much, right? Like you see a lot, but I think one of the main things that's always kept me there is it's a very different dynamic of teamwork than I'm used to, right? If you're in teamwork in sales, or you're in teamwork in school, or if you're in teamwork on an actual like sports team or something, it's a very different dynamic of teamwork than when you're in a team fighting to save and fighting for that like type of cause, right? It's a different kind of thing. So the people that I work with and the personalities that you work with and you're with are in that kind of environment have been really captivating for me. But then also it's really helpful for me in my wellness journey as well, because it's a very different spectrum. Medicine and wellness and are very, very, very different things, right? Doctors they're not trained in nutrition. They're trained in medicine. They're trained how to keep you alive in those type of situations. They're trained to treat. And that's a very different world. And so when I was in that world, realizing the difference of prevention versus, kind of that type of world, I feel like it has always bettered the other end of what I do. But then also I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie. So there are times where like you like hear the telly go off and you're like, holy shit, what's coming in? And then that's always interesting too. I see some crazy things. Obviously, like I can't necessarily like talk about it, but it's interesting. But the people that I work with and the dynamic of teamwork is very heartwarming. And it's something that it's a great thing to be a part of.
And something too, I had recently had some nurses on here too, and they were explaining the few times that they were on the show that in most recent times of at least the last 6 months that you see a lot of like cross teamwork of people coming out of different departments because one area is like very overcrowded and one area, selective surgery isn't really being attended to. So you see different types of camaraderie that you don't see in the outside world, whereas like you'd see, different positions within the same space kind of becomes territorial at times. I think that's just kind of how the human instinct is very primal and biological on an evolutionary level. But in times of fight or flight, that you guys are able to come together and be selfless and figure out what needs to be done in the right amount of time.
Well, I mean, and then I don't know like how like proper it is for me to say this, but ironically too, like it's kind of been like an administration versus staff type thing. Like, let's be clear, staff and administration right now aren't exactly like on the same path. There's a lot of news stories out about hospital corporations accepting a lot of money from the government, but then laying off a bunch of staff or cutting pay or doing all sorts of things. And so we're almost kind of like banding together as well. And so it's just interesting like how it all plays out.
That's so cool. So, and I didn't touch on this before. When you went to college, what college did you go to? And was that
UNLV?
UNLV, and that was in health. That's how you ended there?
No. Okay. So like I had 6 different majors. So I went into college in 2007. I had my first major was political science.
Oof.
Then it was business, then hotel management, then nursing, then education, and then finally interdisciplinary studies. And so I graduated with interdisciplinary studies, but I took a lot of time off. So like I said in the beginning, I saw like a decent amount of success in network marketing. And so I was like, at that time I was like, oh, everyone wants to be millionaires and everyone wants to be rich. And many people do, but in my mind, like everyone wanted to. And so I was traveling back and forth a lot between here and California and going into like speaking in different places or going hang out with my teams or going out and traveling and just kind of like living that lifestyle that I took some time off from school. So AKA I dropped out. And then I finally was like, okay, like you got to graduate before you're 30. You spent a lot of money for this. Like my parents didn't pay for school. I took out the loans. And so I had all these like student loans, but I didn't have a degree. And so then I went back and I went back for a little while, changed my major a million times. And then again stopped going to school. I had kind of like pivoted again, and I was kind of like figuring out what it is that I wanted to do. And at that point it was like, okay, now I'm wasting money. Like I'm going in a direction that I don't want to go. And so I just need to like stop and then whatever. And then I really was like, okay, hi, 30's around the corner. You got to graduate, ma'am. So then I was like, okay, let's buckle down. And that was when I had like my like midlife crisis, well, like pre-midlife crisis. And I decided like, okay, like I don't know what I'm doing. I need to like go back to school. I need to finish that. I need to like do all this stuff. So I finished school. And then when I finished school, it was like, okay,
now what?
And nothing. Nothing. That degree itself, you know, and we're taught, go to school, get a degree, get a degree, get a degree, get a degree. Nothing happened. I just had more fucking student loans, you know what I mean? And then I had the degree, and I'm still not necessarily using my degree now. What I learned in school, like, yes, it was valuable. I won't knock that. Some of what I learned and the experience that I learned in school was valuable. Do I think it was worth the amount of money that I paid? That's a really, really hard thing to say. I don't know. It's a really hard thing to say. It's hard to put a price on education, but I was in a shit ton of student loan debt for a degree that I'm not using. You know what I mean? So
yeah. It's
after I graduated, it was like, okay, great. Like, pat on your back. Like, I finished it for me. Like, and I was glad that I finished it. There was a lot of like weight off my shoulders on that respect. But it's still not something that I utilize. It then pushed me to say like, okay, well, that didn't do anything for me. And so that's not necessarily like opening any doors or like giving me any like extra like oomph or anything. And so that's when I decided like, okay, you need to like build this program and throw your time and dedication into like the grunt work of building this, and then promote the hell out of it and advertise it, and then start getting clients, and then start helping people. And then the very first client that I had, the feeling that I felt like after her like closing, like her like 12-week closing, and she gave me her like full result, was like, all of this has finally been worth it. Like, holy shit. And so since then, I've been able to help tons of women and change their lifestyles. And my goal isn't to change the number on the scale or change their pant size. My goal is to change the way that they view themselves, change the way that they view food, change the way that they view movement, change the way that they view wellness, and help them feel good for the first time in a long time, because most people have no idea how to feel good because they don't treat their body in a way that gives it the environment to do its job to do so. That was a really long-winded answer of what you asked.
That's completely fine, because you just took it into the subject that I wanted to talk about, which was weight loss coaching. Because since I've started the show, I've had a decent amount of coaches on too, and everyone seems like this is a trending thing within society now, is finding a third party. You know, you call them a friend or an associate or a coach. And everyone decides to make their own twist on it, but there is a lot of commonality on it. I've had an actual fitness coach. I've had a mindset specialist, a peak performance coach. I just had a life balance coach. Yours is a weight loss coach. So it's like everyone's taking their own personality, their own branding, and throwing it on top of it, because we're all walking brands at the end of the day. And it's so unique. But what you just emphasize is that it may say weight loss coach, but there's so much more to it than just what the words say, because weight loss is something that I think was focused on in probably like the 70s and 80s and 90s, where it's like, oh, have you been on the scale today? How many pounds did you lose? How much is this? But the number itself of pounds, I don't think is as associated to your well-being as people make it out to be and to think.
Right.
So to look past that and to show that you have to get into people's mind, you have to assist them in trying to figure out what they actually want, what do they believe in, what do they think is perfect, what is making them happy. It's a nice combination to get there.
It's multifaceted.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think it's so crazy, right? So like first part of that is I think that's a beautiful space to be in a place where people are seeking out help. I think that we've kind of finally passed that whole idea of like, be really hard and boys don't cry and you don't ever need help and you're solo, you're independent. Like, that's old school bullshit. Like, ask for help, get help, follow guidance. Don't ask for help from people that aren't where you want to be or who haven't done it, but seek help and get help along the way. Like, I feel like we're now in this space where like, it's no longer looked at as weak to ask for help. It's strategic to ask for help. Save time, save money, save steps, save your sanity by asking for help from people that have been there, from people that are on their way. And I think that that's a beautiful space to be in. And then to be able to, become a professional in that space to where you're giving solid help to people, I think that's incredible. Now I also think that like it kind of can lead doors for some shadiness. But that's where that leads for me being a weight loss coach. Like I'm not just a weight loss coach, because I don't think people need, like, we know how to lose weight, right? How many times has anybody lost 5, 10, 15, 20 pounds throughout their life? We know how to do it. It's not the weight that we need help with. It's everything else. And diet culture doesn't help with that. Diet culture focuses on your weight, and diet culture still pushes that. And whether we're vocal about it or super like internal about it, that's what's going on in the minds of not only women, but men. How do I be smaller? How do I be skinnier? Or how do I be buffer and like more muscular, or whatever it is? How do I aesthetically please the idea of what worthiness is? And society has given worthiness completely married and tied to and superglued to the idea of what you look like. And I think that's absolute bullshit. I know plenty of people that are very skinny and really fit looking that are wildly unhealthy. And I'm determined to kind of like break that. And so the very first part of my program, the whole first module, is mindset and identity, and what you think about yourself and the words that you're telling yourself and the vocabulary that you're using, not only about yourself, but to yourself, because that's the part that people miss. I don't need to teach you how to lose 10 pounds. In fact, you could teach a class on it, I bet, if I asked you to. How do you do it, right? Don't eat as much, and then move your body, and then starve yourself, and then restrict yourself, and do all this list of bullshit. Don't eat past 7, don't eat bread, don't eat noodles, don't eat all this bullshit that all of these diets have like thrown at us for all of these years that never work in terms of being healthy. And we're at this point, and working in the emergency room for so long, that's what really fuels it. I think I think part of the reason why I can't leave there is because it fuels my like fury for like, if you live this, if you do these things, you're going to be this fucking sick. And when a person has to get their feet cut off, or when a person has to be in a wheelchair for the rest of their life, or when a person has to be have a pump, or when a person has to be tied to these medications for the rest of their life, like, you don't fucking want that. But the problem is, it's lifestyle choices, and that's what diet culture doesn't talk about. Take this little fucking pill, take this little like whatever, and this, I'm sorry, I'm getting real heated, but take all these things, and then magically all your problems are going to go away, and you're going to look in the mirror and be skinny, and then your boyfriend's going to want to like whatever, and all the girls are going to want to be you. Like, that's fucking bullshit. And that gives you about 5 minutes of satisfaction, and then the problem, what it does to your mind, then you have to deal with later on, and then the people around you have to deal with, because you're not taking care of yourself. And so that, my program is, it's definitely not weight loss, but people want to lose weight. But along with losing weight, they so desperately want to feel good. They so desperately want energy. They so desperately want to feel confident. They so desperately want to feel good. They want to not feel bloated and have bubble guts all the time. They want to be able to poop like a normal person. They want to be able to have sex without wondering if their belly is going to hurt, or whatever the case may be. Women and men, they want all of these normal things that isn't talked about, because that's not sexy and that's not sellable. And so I'll have no problem with my platinum blonde hair and my earrings and my makeup talking about, hey, how's your pooping going today? Because that's what matters. Hey, how are your stress triggers? Have we talked about that? What emotions are you feeling? What do you want to feel? The average person feels the same 3 emotions every single day, and they're not positive emotions. So how do we break that? It's not by losing weight, but we think it's going to be by losing weight. All of these things that we want, the bottom line is we think it's going to bring us happiness. So how do we actually get down to happiness to then get the other things that we want? We're doing it ass backwards. And unless we have someone to help us in almost any of these categories, unless we have someone to help us, to lead us, who has been led before, it's really hard to get there. I've had plenty of coaches. I'm sure you've had coaches. And so in order to be able to help other people, you almost had to have had that coaching to then be able to coach other people. And my whole entire life's mission is to help people feel good, because most people don't know how. They don't know what it feels. They don't even know what it's supposed to feel like, because it's been so long since they felt good.
Yeah. I could feel that intensity just flying through.
I'm so fiery. Can you tell?
It's awesome that you could say that, because I've also gone through my own health cycles before. You know, I was actually like a very big kid for a long time up until high school. And then going into college and just seeing how everything's supposed to be aesthetically pleasing, you know, and you get on these different supplements, you know, you get on things like creatine and protein powder and all these different things. And then you start working in the nightclub, and it's even exacerbated times 10 in that level. And I've always been one that I've been bigger before, but I feel my healthiest, like my personal healthiest, when I'm at a lighter and leaner weight. And that kind of doesn't fit the mold of my previous workplace in the nightclub industry, because they want big, they want meaty, they want, this buff guy. But it's like, oftentimes you have to go against the grain, even of however people tell you that you should be otherwise. And that goodness, that understanding, that healthiness is such a vicarious feeling, because you transmit it outwards from yourself, even though the responses that you get necessarily aren't always positive, because there's this mold that you're supposed to fit in. And I've gone through a lot of those different diets. I do intermittent fasting now because that's how I feel. I've done keto for a long time. I tried veganism, tried vegetarian, Mediterranean, all these different things. And it's just on and on and on and on. I didn't try the juicing one. I know that's like what's popular. I don't know if that's necessarily healthy. And
there's so many, right? There's so many different things. And when we focus on all that, it gets really loud. It gets really, really loud and really, really contradictory. And just like you were saying, when I was at my skinniest, although I was praying like, oh my God, you look so great, you're so skinny, you're so small, I was fucking miserable. I had no energy because I was starving myself. And then I would binge, and then I would feel like shit about it. And then I would go on like a water diet forever, and then like the cayenne, and then like all the crazy stuff. And so it's really, really interesting. And social media takes a toll on us and what we think we're supposed to look like. And then we work really, really hard to look like that. And then we're just as empty, or we're just as miserable, or more miserable. And so then we're like, okay, well, what's wrong with me? How come I'm supposed to be like so happy now, like that I have this, like, holy shit. And then so we're closeted with these feelings that nobody talks about. And so I committed to talking about it. I went to a really, really, really dark place. And because of my past with personal development, I knew that I couldn't deal with it alone. I knew that I needed help. And so I sought the help of a therapist and a coach. So a licensed therapist that I went through like my insurance and all of that. And then I dropped multiple $1,000s on a coach because I knew that I needed help. The therapist to help me like figure out my own thoughts. And then when I decided, okay, this is what I want to do, a business coach to help me figure out how to launch what I needed to do for my business. And so seeking out that help really can help you like stabilize, and it can help you figure out like, okay, like what step is next, because there's so much noise and there's so much bullshit out there. And then you'll go on Instagram, and no offense to this, but you'll see a 22-year-old girl who's always been a hard body her whole entire life that says, let me give you 5 tips on how to lose weight. And a 42-year-old mom of 3 who has struggled with her weight her entire life is like, how come I'm following those tips? Why isn't it working? What?
Biology.
Like what?
Also the 22-year-old didn't mention that there could be different surgeries that have been along the way at a young age, or the different supplements that they're taking. And
there's so much.
There's a lot of
so
hidden
many
messages
different
behind it. There's a ton. So I'm curious, we've gone over, you'd mentioned this a few times, of your 12-step program, your 3-month program. As far as creating it, did you kind of have an idea of what you wanted to go to, or is this something that took a lot of brainstorming, a lot of notebooks, a lot of papers, or was this something that kind of has changed over time?
Well, so my history in wellness, I've been in the wellness world since I was 22. I've been in the medical world since I was 19. And so my sheer experience in the medical world, but then also in the wellness world, I was very active in my education. I was very active in my learning. Like I said, I'm a notebook junkie. I take notes on everything. I was very active in going to seminars and going to conferences and going to places to learn, that a lot of the knowledge itself was just accumulated over time. And then knowing what I wanted to teach people was there, but then figuring out how to organize it, I was like, so that's when I had to hire the coach to figure out like, how do I package this? You know what I mean? Like, how do I then present it, to teach it, to then have people implement it, right? Because I also don't want to sell something that's just noise for some people. Like, there's too much noise out there. I want to teach people how to implement it, right? Like, I don't want to add to the problem. I want to be a part of the solution. And so I had to hire that coach to figure out like, the hell am I doing? Because I'm not a business coach. I'm a wellness person. And I know, without sounding too like cliche, I had to stay in my lane. And so I needed to get the help to develop it, and then deliver my part and my professionalism. Right.
Yeah, staying in your lane is something that I've kind of had to learn over time as well. I've gone down the entrepreneurial route a little bit. I had 2 previous businesses beforehand, and I tried to do everything on my own. I did not want to accept other help, other assistance. I was like, I got this. I could run 3 businesses at the same time, sleep 2 hours a day, and be completely fine, and still make $1 million on each business, even though one's an antique store.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm always so fascinated in the entrepreneur spirit and the story, because the spirit always stays the same, but the story just so ever evolving over time, and leveraging what I like to call, well, I don't call it, but it's called skill stacking. It's something that Scott Adams preaches, which is learning all these different skills, and then you just fine tune them so much and put them on top of each other that no one is able to replicate you. And I think that's something that you've been able to do. And as we said before this, when I went onto your Instagram, you have a ton of nice and interesting content on there. You even had your own little poop section on there, as we talked before.
Yeah, it's important.
That's something you don't see people talking about, because I don't think it's hit the mainstream yet, and still maybe is indecent in many people's eyes.
Yeah, and I think that there are a lot of things that are taboo to talk about, but if they're not talked about, then you're in the dark, or you're on your own, or you're trying to figure it out. And I think that sometimes just figuring it out on your own, sometimes that's the answer, but then sometimes it's not. Like with your body and making it go through all these different transitions when it's unnecessary, that's where I think, like, let's get some help, let's figure it out. And so Instagram is a big place where I kind of deliver content, because I think it's a great platform for, multiple different generations and eyes to see, and to get that content without necessarily reaching out. Because I also think you got to build trust with people, and show people who you are and what you're about and what your message is, and the consistency of that message, so they can want to invest in whatever it is that you have, and want you to help them, and realize who's going to be on the other end of that. And so I feel like my Instagram is a pretty good place for people to kind of get to know me a little bit, and not only my everyday life, but the things that are really important to me and that I value in terms of being healthy.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I really did enjoy it. And I have another question. I'm kind of going all over the place a little bit, but as far as weight loss,
my life.
as far as weight loss coaching, did you have to take any accredited classes to get is there any certifications, or is this all self-learned?
You can, but you don't have to. And that's also kind of the beauty with the way it is now. Now, I don't think that you should go into something that you don't necessarily know about. I think right now there are a lot of business coaches who had one successful business for 6 months, and they're like, okay, yeah, now I'm gonna teach everybody else how to do that. I don't think that that's a realistic thing, but there are so many things now that you can become an expert in without having to pay the thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for necessarily certifications. If I wanted to, I could take a 6-week certification course. 6 weeks to learn this shit? Yeah, right. Hell no. So me personally, no, I didn't. But there are people that do. You can, but I did not.
Yeah, there's something that I've been kind of fixated on. This is something that, as we go back to challenging things, and I like to call it the accreditation fallacy, whereas something that's been trending more so is what exactly is accreditation? I've been trying to understand what exactly it is. It's okay, you have some sort of centralized organization, give you a course, or they give you classes, or they give you something, and they're okay, now you're a professional in this area. But as we come to find out, and this has kind of been emphasized with the coronavirus pandemic, is the institutions and the people who are giving accreditation don't have any subject matter in it at all. Yeah, they're not accredited at all. Like a bunch of these colleges, people are taking $250,000 out to go to a mid-tier college, and they don't get anything out of it, because the college itself, it sounds good, but the accreditation to them isn't seen in the eyes of the rest of the country. And we see this time and time again, as far as financial experts and health experts. And now with the rise of podcasting, social media, content creators, who's giving a lot of these people, for example, Logan Paul or somebody like that, who has millions of followers, he's accredited by the entire world. So he's kind of crowdsourced. It's kind of become a decentralized accreditation in a sense. And so people are starting to move away from the centralized institutions saying that, okay, this person is the guy to go to. Yeah, because of the money. And the rest of the world is starting to understand that we can do this on our own, and we don't need Bob University to tell us that we're smart. We can go figure this out on our own without them.
Well, I think a lot of people figure that out when they have a degree and they're like, I don't fucking know anything about what I have to do. Like, just be so like, you know, you can be accredited in something and then not be an expert in it. And I think that we've kind of like realized that. But then I think like the development of accreditation became when it's lucrative to pay, like, just to get, so like my best friend, so a couple of my best friends are nurse practitioners. One of her husband's just about to take a PA test, physician's assistant test. It's $500 just to take the test. Why? Says who? Like what? You know what I mean? And that's not to say that hundreds of thousands of dollars that the actual school itself is. So with accreditation, I think it's lucrative. It's a lot of money. It can, I don't know. It's really, really interesting. Right. And so I think that we're in a really beautiful place where you're able to become an expert in something without having to pay an obscene amount of money just to have that label with it. And sometimes that label doesn't mean shit.
Doesn't. Exactly. I have a college degree in kinesiology, and I never even applied it. I just said it's just more practical use than anything. But even then, I learned as I got the degree, they're like, there's probably a lot of classes if you go into your master's, you'll have to take again because the classes that you took as an undergrad become obsolete because the information is changed over just a 2-year period. I'm like, well,
so that's exactly it. So someone that was accredited 10 years ago or someone that has a license 10 years ago in nutrition, it's dramatically changed. And so I'm actually really glad that you asked that. But also for people that are listening that like want to dive into something, if you feel that you have to have a degree for it, if you have to have I don't know, like a license for it or a certificate for it, you don't necessarily, I mean, obviously some things you have to, but not everything you do. So if that's the one thing that's holding you back, like, just get smarter at it, just get better at it, and then go for it. You also have to have the balls to do it. Just because you have the smarts for it doesn't mean you have the cojones to like do it. You know what I mean? There are plenty of people that are way, 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 way smarter than I am and way more qualified to be doing what I'm doing, but they don't have the pizzazz to do it, to get out there and say like, hey, my name is Liza. Go to my Instagram, Liza.Henley. I would love to help you. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? Like, what are your struggles? What are your stress triggers? What are this? Like, I would love to help you. Like, people don't necessarily have the ability to do that. And unless you have both, it can be really hard. But if you think the only reason that you can't do it is because you don't have a certificate, do it.
Yep. Unless you're going into the hard sciences, you know, chemistry and physics and some of these, a lot of these subjective positions, it's something that you can do on your own. And then when you leverage that within your own brand and you show that you have grit and consistency and passion, that's more so what passion. You can see it. I've seen it in you throughout this entire conversation, especially about 15 minutes ago.
It used to get me in trouble in school. I don't know why.
You're like, I just have a passion for talking to people. Like, why are you putting me in-house? I just like talking to people. You're not teaching me.
Well, then they were like, okay, you're talking everywhere you go. I'm like, right. So like, just accept it.
Mm-hmm. Stop boxing me in, Miss Stroud. Yeah, it's so true because nowadays, as you see, people gravitate towards you because you're willing to be vulnerable and to put yourself out there. Just like as I'd started this podcast, just like you had started your multiple different careers. We weren't good at it in the beginning, but you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay to put yourself out there and be vulnerable because it is awkward for a while. Mm-hmm. One thing that I've learned through my own experiences and that I've witnessed is that if you put it out into the universe that this is something that you want, more often than not, you're going to get there. It might take a little bit longer than you expected, and sometimes it might be much quicker than you expected. But getting
10 years.
Yeah. But getting there, once you're there, that satisfaction of that all your different crossroads are finally hitting that point. You're just like, yes. Yeah. And then 10 seconds later, you're like, all right, now what?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Like there are plenty of times where I hear like, God, you're so happy. Or like, God, like, you like have this or you have that. And like, and I just want to like sometimes like scream, like, this is not by accident. Like I didn't just land here. I'm not one of those people. No, I know that that does sometimes happen. And those types of people often get glorified. Like I'm not one of those people. I really did like, and I'm not talking like my childhood struggle, but I'm talking like my early 20s. Like I really struggled with trying to find myself and find like, okay, like I want to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to try all these different businesses. I can't even tell you how many different things I've tried and like started, and different licensing I've gotten, different, like all this like shit that I've done and tried with Juliana and with myself and other different people that, you know, kind of had that entrepreneurial spirit. But all these different things that I've tried, and then landing flat on my back multiple times. I remember I lived with my sister and my nephew. My sister is 10 years older than I am, and I lived with my nephew, and he had a piggy bank. And I remember a day that I was like, shit, I don't have gas to get to work, and I have about -$5 in my bank account, and my credit cards are maxed the fuck out. And I remember going into his room when he was asleep and taking a $5 bill out of his piggy bank to fill up my gas tank. It was a Friday morning, or it was Thursday morning, so I knew I was going to get paid the next day. I've obviously like replaced it, but I remember being in that place where I had to take a $5 bill from my sleeping nephew to put gas in my car, while still then driving to work. And then on my lunch break, opening that notebook saying, all right, bitch, brainstorm. What are we gonna, like, we gotta do this. We gotta figure this out. While everybody else is saying, go back to school, get another degree, go back to school, do this or do that. And I was like, no. You guys don't get it. The idea of doing that to me is so debilitating. I gotta figure this out. So in the midst of all of that, like, it wasn't just like an easy ride. Like I'm not just at this place because, and I'm also not at this like grandiose place either. I'm at a place where I'm incredibly happy and incredibly healthy, and I've had the success that I've started to want and that I'm still continuing to build. But it wasn't just cause. I had to really, really work for it and really, really design it. But I also want to like show to people that like it's worth it. It's really, 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 really worth it. There's two sides of scary. Scary staying where you are right now, or scary figuring out where you want to go. Hard staying where you are right now, or hard figuring out where you want to go. And I've been in both places, and I can tell you the worth it factor of trying to just figuring it out and being vulnerable and feeling the hurt and feeling the scared and feeling the panic and feeling the holy shit, what am I doing? But I know I got to do something, and going for it is so magically magnificent that it's worth all like the sleepless nights, all the crying, all the like, am I gonna have ramen noodles again as a grown-ass adult for the fourth time in a row? Or, you know what I mean? The struggle has been wildly eye-opening too, and it's taught me so much.
The journey is what we have to focus on. That's the learning experience. And like I said, once you get to that point of where you can just breathe, you take it in and you live it for a few days, and then you're like, all right, where am I going next? What's next? But you see it on a different spectacle, because I think that what a lot of people are afraid of, it's a question that comes up time and time again through the media, and it's like the question of what is our purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's such an ass backwards way of seeing reality, and it's kind of been emphasized through our conversation, is that I think in order to find your purpose, you have to first discover what your niche is. And therefore you feel satisfied and you're like, all right, I found my place. Now I can take this small, finite, niche, specialized job, and then I can start to expand outwards. Whereas you say like, what's my purpose? That's just like such a vast thing. That's like encompasses the entire universe.
It's hard.
You're like, oh my God. So
Well, I feel like that's what we're taught, like in high school. Like, okay, now what do you want to do for the rest of your life? And I was like, I'm sorry, what? The rest of my what? I think I haven't even like started yet. So the idea of trying to figure it out was crazy for me. And so I think that it almost takes the journey for me, at least. I mean, some people I feel like maybe they know, but for me, it took a journey.
A journey, yeah. And accepting failure and not seeing failure as failure, but as a learning experience and just more opportunities. Because more often than not, we're gonna hit a wall, and like you said, we're gonna fall on our back. And hopefully we're not like a turtle and get stuck there. We're going to be able to flip ourselves over and progress onwards. And just like a turtle, it is a slow moving process. It's not going to be like the hare where we're going to get there right away. You have to understand that.
You
To be
know,
methodical.
Les Brown says, if you're going to fall on your back. Because if you can look up, you can get up. And the couple of times that I fell, and so mind you, I grew up in Las Vegas. So there were two specific times in my early adult life that I could have easily gone down a very scary road. And this path of personal development kind of like kept me back and kept me back. And that was one that I had to learn, the idea of that failure doesn't mean failure. You can look at failure as, okay, like now what? Like you use it as kind of like a compass. And that was a long lesson for me to learn, because a couple of my failures set me into this spiral of like, I am a failure. I took my failures as I was a failure. And so trying really hard to separate those two, it was a tough lesson for me to learn, but a necessary one.
Very, very, very necessary. Just, I've gone through a few failures along my way as well. And as we were talking beforehand, is that you have to seek rock bottom, but then bounce off of that and to, you know, as I said, casually define it and move on, move upwards and be able to pivot, because these life experiences, it's something, especially in your 20s, I feel like there's such a rush in your 20s to, you know, have a kid, build a family, American dream, house by 28. That was my dream. I was like, I'm gonna have a house by 28, I'm gonna have a kid. And now I look at it as I'm 28 right now, and I'm just like, what was I thinking? Oh my God, these are such crazy expectations that our peers and our family puts on us. But I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it's realistic either in today's society. So it is about just formulating your own path, your own mission, your own path of entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship is something now I think that by nature, a lot of the millennial and younger generation, we have to adapt to. We have to become entrepreneurs. We have to be multifaceted, because the opportunity of getting a degree and working up to be a CEO it's pretty non-existent. As just to cite a study that Eric Weinstein, somebody that I listened to, had noted, is 20 years ago, the top university president, the average age group was in the 50s. And now 20 years later, the average age group's in the 70s. Yeah. So they're keeping it all inward. They're hoarding the power up. And I don't think like we should just say like, you know, eat the billionaires and eat the rich and all these different things. I think it's being able to adapt to whatever's thrown at you and eventually become relevant. And that's something that, you know, it's often misguided, as you see in certain movements about this, is just casting blame. Yeah. But there's always a way around something.
For sure. When I was a hotel management major, we had a guest speaker that said, to move up, someone either has to die or move. And I was like, oh, hell no, there's not enough places in the top for all of us, so I'm out. You know what I mean? Like, and not that everyone like needs to want to be at the top, but that was a time in my life that like I did, you know, was super interested in having that like societal success. Exactly what you said. Like I wanted all of these things that, like I said, I wanted my little Pinterest board of how I wanted my life to be, but it wasn't how I wanted my life to be. And that's part of kind of like what falling taught me, is that like, wait a minute, I'm chasing something that I don't even think I want anymore. Like what's happening? And so that's a big part of it.
Yeah. We got to learn. So as far as your weight loss coach profession, where do you see yourself going forward? Is this something that you're going to continue? Is it something that maybe will branch out? And what's kind of the overall morale and view towards it?
Well, not to like toot my own horn, but I think the work that I do is really, really, really needed. And the conversations that I have with my clients every single day solidify that. Again, I don't teach just weight loss. I help you achieve that, yes, but that's not what I teach you. I teach you different fundamentals and different mindset tricks and shifts and multiple other things that can get you to that space, but then also opens a different part of your life. And I think that what I do is so needed, and it took me a really long time to develop it and to figure out exactly how to make it to what people need. Because remember, I've kind of been doing this since I was 21, trying to figure out how to all come into fruition and birth it, if you will. But since birthing it and continuing to develop it, the next stage is to continue to make it prettier, that's the least of my concerns. But the content and the material itself, I think, women all over the world need it. And so the next stage of the game is just to continue to market it, continue to advertise it, to continue to let women all around the world know about it. But it's a fight, right? Because I'm fighting against diet culture. I'm fighting against all of these, big time celebrities that get on their Instagram and sell this bullshit skinny tea that's full of toxic nonsense, and that sell all these things that make women say like, oh my God, I got to do that. I need to have that, or I should look like that, or I should have all of these things. I'm fighting that big fight. But I do think more and more people are getting to a place where they just want to feel good. And more people that are either around me or see me, I think that me feeling good, I exude that. And I think that more and more people want that. I have cellulite. I'm not the smallest I've ever been. I have rolls. I have all these things too. Like I'm a normal person in all those respects, but I'm damn happy and I'm damn healthy. And that's because it's intentional. And I want to help other people develop that intentionality to where it fits for them, because it's not a one size fits all. And so I think that I've only just begun, and the work is so necessary that I eventually see myself needing a team to help me get this work out there for more and more people. But absolutely, I've only just begun with this program, and I think Mindful Body Blueprint is my absolute baby. And I'm also then going to come up with ways to be able to gift it to people. It's not necessarily a cheap program, but I think investing in yourself is a first big thing. I think that a lot of people have never had anyone believe in them that they're able to invest in something. And I believe in people to invest in it. I think that there's a will, there's a way. And so teaching people how to do that is awesome, but being able to gift that as well. So being able to do different like giveaways and different things where I can gift this program to women that I know need it, but also aren't necessarily in the financial position to do it. And so that's kind of where the growth of it that I see. And yeah, I'm really, really excited for it. I absolutely love it. I think eventually I will do a podcast as well. But for now, I like being on podcasts and helping other people that the podcast is their lane. I like helping other people kind of take that lane and run with it too.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I say that everyone should have a podcast. It's just another variation of a platform to get your voice out in long form, and not just these 60-second or 280 character limits that social media kind of casts us on. So yeah. Crunching it in. But I think this will be a good transition towards the end. This has been a beautiful conversation. I always ask 2 questions on the way out, same to everyone. This kind of goes along with what we were just talking about, but the year is 2030. Where do you see the landscape of Liza Henley's life?
2030, that's 10 years from now. Honestly, I'll be 41. I see myself moving my body every single day. I see myself nourishing my body with healthy foods and giving my body the environment to do its job. So physically, I'm in a healthy place. I see myself traveling all over the world. I have a beach house in Mexico, maybe a house in Barcelona. I have a beautiful family that I'm still able to spend time with, but I have this massive business that I can help women all over the world do and be and feel better, and traveling the world with my man and having a blast, having fun and living well.
Fun is key. And last question is, what does Las Vegas mean to you?
Home. Wow,
Beautiful.
I just got like a really weird emotional response. Oh my God, how crazy. That was so weird. Vegas is home for me. I've been here since I was 13 years old. I've seen a lot here. I've done a lot here. And when you live here, it's a very different place for the rest of the world. So Las Vegas for me means home.
Beautiful. How can everyone get connected with you and your business?
The best place to get connected with me is on Instagram. It's Liza, Liza Henley, Henley. I am also on Facebook. I also have a free Facebook group for people that are looking to just get a little bit healthier, get a little bit an idea, or kind of like tap dance in the world of health and wellness and eating healthier, called Mindful Eating with Liza. Those are the 2 main places. And then if you wanted to email me, it's contact@lizahenley.com. I would love to just chat a little bit further with anyone that's just looking to get a little bit healthier, or try to figure out how to get happier, or try to figure out just how to get a little bit more out of life. Because if you're not getting enough out of life right now, I'm here to tell you life is way too short to be mediocre. You can live, and let's do it.
Live and breathe. We're on it. This is beautiful.
Thank you
Thank you so much.
so
This was
much.
awesome.
This conversation was very liberating for me. You are wonderful. I'm so proud of the work that you're doing. Keep going. It lifts people up too. And so I'm really proud of the work you're doing.
Thank you so much, Liza. This is beautiful. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.